Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and welcome to my update 3.5 meta picks video. We had about a week in the meta. VG Pro has updated its win rates on its hero page. I've been able to go through that and talk to some of the European pros. Specifically, I'm the Doom. He always helps me out with these meta lists. And now we are ready to release our update 3.5 meta list for you guys to use in ranked and casuals and whatever you like, just to make sure you're in the strongest position to climb. Going to apologise in advance. The audio quality, I'm using my laptop to record this and therefore it's going to be lower than my studio at home. Do apologise, but we'll do our best to get through. We're going to start with the mid lane, and the mid lane is an interesting one because it hasn't changed too much over the last few updates. But Flicker is a big pick right now in the mid lane. Absolutely stomps people left, right and centre. If you're not picking this guy, I don't know what's wrong with you. In fact, Flicker can be played in every single role. He can be played in top lane, bot lane, jungle, and in the captain position. Flicker is brilliant. Oh, okay, I'm joking. Let's start with Anchor. And if you didn't realise, guys, that was a joke. If you were watching the EPL broadcast on my Twitch, you might have heard that I said I was going to create a hero tier list with Flicker in every role. I didn't want to go through the whole thing just talking about Flicker because it's difficult. So let's get on to Anchor. Anchor, one of the new update heroes, really strong in the mid lane, very high burst-ish assassin, and this build that you see on the right hand side there is really well suited. You can either take the clockwork route where you hold off on your basic attacks, or you can take the aftershock route where you don't have to hold on to your basic attacks and you're better against higher health targets. Both of them are fine. I would recommend you give both of them a whirl, but Anchor is going to be a good pick on this update. And Celeste, I mean, I feel like I've talked about her every single time. Celeste is still a really strong mid lane mage. The meta has kind of changed her build around a little bit. You go Spellfire first to deal with the very heavy heal captain, shield captain, heal top lane, shield top lane meta, because you need those mortal wounds and it gives you a good spike in the mid game. So that's the Celeste there. You can see she's still super strong, as is Meline. Meline in a really good position also. And again, her build path is a little bit changed. You definitely need Aftershock now because of the cooldown nerfs that Meline received on the last few updates. But I often like to go a bit more burst orientated in the beginning and get a Shatterglass. But the build path is very similar to most Meline builds that you would have seen. And again, you can build it in whatever order. Aftershock is fine first too. You can even give Spellfire a well first if you do need those mortal wounds and you're struggling against heals and you're struggling against shields too. So Meline's still in a good position despite receiving a lot of nerfs. Samuel's made his way back into the meta, really good roam potential, really strong with Spellfire as a first item. Honestly, Samuel probably should have never left the meta update list. There was just a point at which a lot of people were playing him in the jungle, but now he's kind of split across the jungle and the mid lane, and he's still a great mid laner if you want to be able to harass and push your opponent in. A lot of the meta right now is having that ability to push really early on, so any really strong early wave clear heroes are going to be good in the meta because that allows you to get priority and go into your opponent's jungle and try and put pressure on their CP buff. So that's kind of, especially at high elo, anything that can clear waves early on is good. So I'm the Doom has offered me a off-meta pick here, and it is Reza mid. Now, before you laugh, Reza mid is genuinely an okay pick. He did well in 3v3 when matching up against other mages. He clears waves quite well with his Troublemaker, with his Scorcher. He spikes really hard with one item. He's got great gap closing potential to close gaps and burst those very low mobility mages out, and he's got great roaming potential as well when roaming to the side lanes from that mid lane. Reza is genuinely a decent off-meta mid lane pick, and I would thoroughly recommend you guys give him a go if you're a good Reza player. Right, we're going to move on to the top lane now. Let's have a look at what we've got in store for probably the most boring lane in Vainglory. We have seen a lot of changes in the meta, or specifically forced meta changes by Super Evil Megacorp to Mogacorp. We trying to stop this 2v1 meta, basically. But the 2v1 meta does still exist. It's just really useful to be able to put pressure on that turret early, and that has solidified the Stormcrown-orientated tank utility top laners in the meta, especially at high-elo solo queue. When you're looking at between tier 4 to 7, tier 4 to 8, you will see a lot of different things, but tier 9 onwards, you often find that it is going to be specifically captains in the top lane. Or, well, captain tanks anyway, that have good wave clear and can make use of Stormcrown. Adagio is another one, and again, Stormcrown really the only core item for him. You can build that into a alternating current. You could go down a pure supportive build path by going for a fountain and a capacitor plate and acting like a second captain, as long as you've got the damage on your team to back that up. So Adagio is still a strong top laner, still a good 2v1 top laner as well because of his wave clear. As is Arden with his Vanguard, a pretty good wave clear too, so that's why you see those guys function up there in the top lane. Having a look at Grace, she's good top laner, she works well with Stormcrown, and you can build her in a multitude of ways. You can build her a weapon power supportive top laner with Tension Bow or with Sorrowblade or Serpent's Mask Breaking Point, which a lot of people tend to build. Or you can go down a CP supportive build path, build a Shattered Glass, and have really big hitting Holy Novas and really powerful heals. So both of those are fine for Grace, and I would recommend, if you want to, giving her a go. The black sheep here is Reza, and Reza, again, was off meta in the mid lane, but he's still good in the top lane. He's got good wave clear with his A, he spikes hard with Aftershock, and actually so many times I've seen Reza, when he gets his ultimate and has his Aftershock online, 2v1 people in the top lane. So he has a really low gold functioning build, which means he doesn't take much gold to get him online. Aftershock and Broken Myth are fairly cheap items, and they give him the spike that he needs to do well. So that's a good pick for the top lane if you don't want to play a tanky supportive top laner. Or you could try my off-meta pick, which last update I put in as a meta top laner. Now that we've really seen a solidification of tank top laners, Ozo is less so in that position. But I genuinely think that Ozo weapon power has got a space in the 5v5 meta. I will upload a video of gameplay tomorrow where I played Weapon Power Ozo. I mean, I got hard carried, guys, I'm not going to tell you, but I talk a lot about the Weapon Power Ozo laning phase, and I genuinely think it is one to keep your eye on. I think he's a good top laner, and especially if you want to play something a bit more damage orientated, he's definitely worth a go. Right. Now we're going to move on to the bot lane, which is primarily dominated by weapon power carries. Because of the proximity to the weapon power buff, because you take turrets really quickly, the weapon power bot lane meta is been here from the very inception of 5v5 and doesn't look like it's going anywhere. Kinetic weapon power is one of those top meta picks that do really well in the bot lane. She scales up super nicely, Spell Sword, Breaking Point, Serpent's Mask for her full build, and then you add some defense in there. You could even go more damage items if you wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary. She's got a good win rate overall. The win rate has been climbing. Her ban rate has been going down because there's other things to ban, like Anchor and Kensei. And overall, she gets better and better as the game goes on. Wouldn't be a meta list without this boy, Vox. Very firmly in the meta still. Probably will be for the entirety of VG's existence. But his build has changed. It's gone to Serpent's Mask, Breaking Point, and Tornado Trigger because the Poison Shiv nerf was significant enough to make this build more damage friendly and scale up his Breaking Point more effectively. So this is a build that I would recommend for Vox, plus the extra movement speed from the Tornado Trigger helps with his kiting, especially that now he's had the cooldown nerfed on his A. Right, moving on to Kensei. He's actually creeping into a position where he's actually playable because he's not getting banned all the time. His ban rate definitely dropped since the nerfs, as did his win rate, but he is still a really strong bot laner. Serpent's Mask, Breaking Point, Spell Sword is the build that I would recommend. Scales up really nicely as the game goes on. Still has a fairly weak early game, but nonetheless. Let's have a look at Weapon Power Skye. This might strike you as a little bit odd, but I genuinely think Weapon Power Skye is in a really good place in the meta. She has good lane matchups versus most of the tanks because she can harass them really easily in the top lane 2v1 meta. She's very good at diving backline mages. She's good at kiting things like Kensei. She counters things like Vox to an extent. I think Weapon Power Skye is a strong pick, and you can see she's got a 73.7% win rate, even though it's on a very, very low very low sample size on her Weapon Power build. Her Weapon Power build overall is kind of slept on. CP Skye is trash, don't get me wrong, but Weapon Power Skye in a good position. Right, my off-meta pick, and it's the same as it was last time, Gwen. Gwen's not totally meta at high elo, but she's someone that can really snowball lanes, and her build doesn't really rely on Tension Bow anymore. You can go down this build that you've seen here, Sorrowblade, Breaking Point, Tyrant's Monocle. I was looking at I think it was Old School, and Old School was playing a lot of this over in North America recently and having good success with it. So Gwen generally is in a good position in the meta, and I would consider picking her up if you're not great or confident with any of those other weapon power heroes. Alright, let's have a look finally at the jungle and captain roles. Let's start with the jungle. Jungle is an interesting one at this point in time because honestly, for the most part, the jungle meta has changed quite significantly and seems to change every single update depending on what the jungler wants to achieve. We'll have a look at Tony first. Tony has found his way into the meta, and believe it or not, he's kind of been sleeper for a little bit. he really only needs a spell sword to activate his full potential. He is a very utility and supportive focused jungler. He looks mainly to get those stuns off and to get those taunts. He uses the bada bing bada boom to either isolate or peel for his carries, but Tony overall has great team utility. That's why a lot of people play doing captain before, but he's finally finding some use in that jungle role. I've seen a lot of EU pros playing Samuel in the jungle, and they build Spellfire and Frostburn as core items. Now, Frostburn coming in here is because it's fulfilling a more utility-focused role from the jungle. Frostburn allows you to control the pace of teamfights, it allows you to catch out people, it allows you to siege really well against turrets. So, Samuel in the jungle with a Frostburn, cheap build, and can activate really quickly. Batiste was there last time, and Batiste will be there again. Really only needs 2 core items to activate. Got great catch potential, great peel potential. He's a really good counter engager. He's good at walking into lanes, just slowing an Ordained down and finding a kill. Overall, Batiste, a really, really good jungler to have on board on your team. And I would recommend especially going the weapon power build path over the CP. The CP build path honestly does not have a huge amount of effect in 5v5. Maybe in 3v3 it still does, but in 5v5 less so. Now we're going to look at Glaive. Glaive has kind of shifted in terms of his build path. The highest win rate build is a build that focuses primarily on Serpent's Mask and Breaking Point. And again, utility focused. You'll notice it's a bit of a theme here from the jungle. You're not looking for a hard carry in the jungle anymore. A lot of it comes with the ability to help peel or set up your other carries in the mid lane and in the bot lane. That's why you usually have hyper carry focused bot and mid lanes. And then you have supportive, semi-damaged junglers. And you also have, like I said, top laners. Now, off meta pick that Doom gave me is Ringo Weapon Power Jungle. Not even going to give you a build for this one, guys. I'm just going to tell you that I'm sorry, and I apologize wholeheartedly for how many games get ruined with the Weapon Power Jungle Ringo. I have seen it actually in streams. I probably wouldn't pick it over anything else. But it is there, it does work, because you can 2v1 the jungle mostly. And obviously Achilles shot, if you just walk into a lane and use it, you will slow down your opponent. He's got a surprising amount of burst damage. I mean, it could definitely be a thing. Right, let's move on to Captain now. And we will start with our dad. He's still here, still working. Although you will notice a bit of a difference in the Captain item builds that I bring to the table here. You'll notice that there is a fountain missing. And that's because you don't necessarily need a fountain in 5v5 especially. Maybe in 3v3 it is more important, but in 5v5 especially, you don't need a fountain. What you do need is a crucible. And for shield and heal orientated captains, you also need a capacitor plate. Crucible is absolutely necessary in 5v5. There is always going to be something to block, and always something that you need to block early. So Crucible is basically a core item on most captains now. But I prefer Crucible being a core item than I prefer Fountain, because I think Crucible requires a bit more skill and is more user dependent. Lorelei coming through, she's really strong, great teamfight control with her B, great protection with her C, and obviously has some utility with her stuns. So Lorelei, really good captain in the current meta, and again, if you're a Lorelei fan, that's good news. Even despite the nerfs, Lyra is still a strong captain. Her B is really good at disengaging. She's got a great portal to give the ability to be aggressive, and her heal still functions just the way you would expect it to. Heals for a significant amount. So Lorelei and Lyra, 2 L's, still in the meta, thoroughly there, and again, you don't necessarily need a fountain anymore. Crucible and Capacitor Plate are the core items for Lyra. Now, this would be Adagio. I would have put Adagio in here, but I feel like a lot of Adagios would naturally gravitate towards the top lane. And I can't ignore the fact that Finn has the highest win rate in the game right now. It has been a long time since I've seen Finn having the highest win rate in the game. But he is generally a good captain for solo queue. You've got good engage potential. Quibble is a really strong ability when overdriven. And obviously Capacitor Plate still works really nicely with his polite company. So Finn actually is a solid captain, and I really think he's got a place in the meta. The off-meta pick that was given to me by I'm the Doom is Churn Walker. If you were watching the EPL, you would have seen Leon on Churn Walker absolutely crush kids. And that's kind of what Churn Walker is good for. With a coordinated team, he's really strong, he survives a hell of a long time with the buffs to his passive, and he's really hard to take out. So Churn Walker, I think, is a really strong captain. And if you're not wanting to be a heal bot or a shield bot for your hyper carry and you want to have a bit more control over the influence in the game, I would definitely recommend giving Churn Walker a go. Right, apologies again for the audio quality on this video, recorded from my laptop, but I wanted to make sure I got this out on time. Thank you very much for watching this, guys. I will see you soon.